Hello everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the Listening Room Sonic Journeys. I am your host, your groove guru, and your guide to the vibes, the cultural DJ, and today we're talking about something that is very near and dear to my heart, a record label that has effectively changed my life and the way that I think about music, that record label being the Numero Group. If you're new, be sure to like and subscribe. New episodes out every Thursday. Be sure to check out the socials, Cultural DJ on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Be sure to also check out the accompanying playlist for this episode. The links for the socials and that playlist will be found in the description below. So we're talking about the Numero Group, and for those uninitiated, what the Numero Group is it's a record label, but it's not like Arista or Capitol or Atlantic. It's actually an archival record label. It's out of Chicago, Illinois, and it was founded by two individuals, Rob Sevier and Ken Shipley. And what they do is they dig up old, rare, and often forgotten musical gems and give them new life. In an interview with Alarm magazine, Ken Shipley, when he was asked about the mission statement of Numero Group, he was asked, Numero Group is a label that documents the American experience using music as its medium. Has there been a mission statement? To which Ken responds, we always say that we make the kind of records that you didn't know that you wanted to own. I don't know if there's necessarily one exact mission statement. We just make records that we would want to listen to. But earlier on, he's saying we wanted to dig deep into the recesses of our record collections with the goal of finding the dustiest gems begging to be released from their exile on Geek Street. So the thing about Numero Group that sets them apart from even some of their other archival label peers is that they're not just re-releasing records, but they're also telling a story. Many of their releases, the way that they're packaged especially, it's almost like a miniature museum in a way. They package it with all these old photographs of record labels, record sleeves rather, and they have this nice story. They have these comprehensive liner notes that tell the story of the label, of the artists on the label, who was involved, who did what. They have interview bits, and it's just really, really well put together. All of it is just so amazing. And I've been a fan of Numero Group for about well over a decade now. And the way that I actually discovered Numero Group is this. I can't remember the exact year. I want to say it's been about a decade, or at least a decade. But the way that I discovered them is I was on Spotify, right? And I was trying to build a playlist of, at that point, like obscure and rare funk and soul music. So I typed in the Spotify search, I believe, something like obscure funk or obscure soul, whatever. And what popped up was this thing called eccentric soul. And I saw a record cover, an album cover that featured what looked like a marching band on it. And one of the songs that I ended up listening to and putting on that playlist was a song called No Way Out by Clarence Reid, which was from the Eccentric Soul, The Outskirts of Deep City release by Numero Group. And at the time, I didn't know who Numero Group was. I didn't know what Eccentric Soul was. I just found the album and the song and put it on there. I liked it enough to put it on the playlist. And Outskirts of Deep City is actually kind of a sequel to their previous release of Deep City, and Deep City is focusing on the funk and soul music of the state of Florida. And a few years after that, when I got a bit heavier into record collecting, I went to a local coffee shop that doubles as a record store in my city. And that record shop actually has a small section dedicated to Numero Group. And I, at that point, had gotten a little bit more familiar with Numero Group, but I wasn't like super duper into it yet. And the record that I ended up picking out, which ended up being the first ever Numero Group release that I would buy was the Eccentric Soul, the Saru label. And it is a compilation that details this independent record label out of Cleveland, Ohio called Saru Records. Saru was a short-lived record label out of the Cleveland, Ohio area. It spanned from 1968 to 1971. So short-lived, but despite being a short-lived record label, it would actually help cement the Cleveland area as a major player in the development of soul and funk and R&B in the late 60s and early 70s. It was founded by a bail bondsman named Chuck Brown. Not that Chuck Brown, a different Chuck Brown, right? But Chuck Brown being, he wasn't a musically savvy individual, so what he did was he would employ the likes of Lou Ragland and Bobby Massey of the OJs, and they would essentially be the creative helmsman of the record label. They would bring in a lot of the talent that would come in and cut records. In fact, the OJs would cut some records with the Saru label as well, and those records in particular are rather rare. And I'm here looking at the record itself right now. We have names like Out of Sights, Pandela Kelly, The Elements, Bobby Dukes, David Peoples, and the Ponderosa Twins +1, who you might, some of the more eagle-eared listeners, that might stand out to you because they have a song called Bound, which was famously sampled by Kanye West it was the last track of his album Yeezus from 2013. He had a song called Bound 2. And that makes it sound like a sequel, but it's not really a sequel. And in fact, they talk about it. Well, Rob Sevier, who wrote the liner notes for this compilation, actually talks about that particular instance in the final paragraph of the liner notes. And if I can pull it out right here, it says, decades later, an accidental hit would fall into the lap of Brown and Massey. To close out his 2013 messianic statement of purpose, Yeezus producer Kanye West resuscitated Massey's and Duke's brilliant Bound for a sequel of sorts. More a re-edit or bricolage than an actual song. Bound 2 leaned heavily on a lightly flipped chunk of Bound, interpolated with a melody by another Ohioan, Norman Whiteside, from Aeroplane, as sung by Charlie Wilson. Regardless of the components of Bound 2, the result was an irresistible sleeper for West. As a result of the new life given to his song, Brown managed to follow the complicated string of bankruptcies and asset auctions to their end, settling with Warner Music Group over 40 years after Chuck Brown had walked away from the music business, presumably for good. The master tapes of 2 + 2 + 1 = the Ponderosa Twins +1 LP were returned to his new home in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. Even a hardened bondsman was moved by the homecoming. It felt like there was a God somewhere, Brown said. And that's the final paragraph of the liner notes of this compilation. So this was my first real, introduction to the Numero Group. It was the first record of theirs that I bought and owned. And from there, I would continue to go back to that coffee shop / record store and just buy more Numero Group releases. And I've amassed not a big collection of those releases, but a sizable chunk. I have other Eccentric Soul releases like the pre-label. I have Teen Expo, the Cleopatra label, which is about a obscure 1960s pop label. I have Basement Beehive, which is about 1960s girl groups, which is really, really cool. I have Button Starter Kit, which is about some lesser-known power pop bands. And one of my all-time favorites of theirs that I have is Louis Wayne Moody High. And the packaging, like I was saying earlier, they really, really go all out for much of their packaging. But this is packaged like a yearbook or an annual for some of the older folks. But it's packaged like a yearbook with like student photos, and apparently there's like a murder mystery in there somewhere with like the signings of students and everything. It's super duper cool, and I wish I wish I could show it off in this video, or this episode rather, but it's just really, really cool, and I'll maybe make some content about it on the socials at some point in the future, but Numero Group really opened up a whole new world as far as record collecting and kind of how I would search for and understand music from there on. And it also allowed me to discover a bunch of other archival labels, which I will get to a bit later. So now, why exactly is Numero Group important to me? Well, before the creation of Cultural DJ, it was really about the discovery and appreciation for underrepresented and underappreciated music. And it was the realization of a whole new and different world of music. They were compiling records from local and regional scenes, from independent labels, from church choirs, garage bands, talent shows, hole-in-the-wall venues, all these would-be famous talents that maybe never got to be famous until essentially they put out these records. And even then, some of them are still underrepresented and underappreciated, but Numero Group is doing their damnedest to make sure that they at least get some kind of shine that that they feel that they deserve. And I love that about them. And then also, it's a matter of how much they cover their bases, because genre-wise, they've obviously soul. Eccentric Soul is their biggest set of releases, and they're probably most famous for the soul music. They do funk, R&B, they've done electronic music, folk, country, psychedelic rock, 60s pop music, jazz, and ambient, punk, power pop, emo, post-hardcore, just all these different styles of music they've done and they've covered extensively throughout their tenured history. And I just love that, and how they don't skimp on any of these, whether it's a genre or a scene or artist. They dig deep. They show that they really, really care about what it is that they're archiving and what it is that they're talking about. They really care, and they dig super deep into it. And the amount of detail and comprehensiveness of their liner notes and their photos, and even down to the curation of the songs themselves, shows how much work they put into it. And then when it came to me creating Cultural DJ about a year or so ago, I experienced a deep fascination with archival labels. Not even just Numero Group, but so many others I just got super into, because a lot of what Numero Group and these other archival labels are about thoroughly influenced and inspired me to do what I do with Cultural DJ, the way that they are able to preserve music and music history and tell these different stories about artists and scenes and albums and songs and record labels and all this that could have otherwise been lost to time, is so important to me in what I do, the work that I do with this platform, with Cultural DJ. That's really what it's all about. And I say with Cultural DJ, I'm connecting the dots of global music history and culture. And a lot of that comes from record labels like Numero Group. And a few other labels I like to shout out in particular that I've become obsessed with over the last while: Soul Jazz Records, Soundways, Light in the Attic, Analog Africa, Death Is Not the End, Mississippi Records, Now Again, Sahel Sounds, Finders Keepers, and Smithsonian Folkways. And there's a whole bunch of others. There's so many. I'm always trying to look for new ones that I've never heard of before. A lot of these are ones that I've been a fan of for a while, and ones that I've dug much deeper into within the past year or two. But I'm always looking for more. So if y'all have some that I haven't named, or some more obscure archival or re-release record labels out there, Coal Mine is also one that I appreciate a lot. But if you all have more and you want to put me on to something, absolutely put some in the comments. I'd love it. Absolutely love it. But yeah, Cultural DJ, I absolutely wear my influences on my sleeve when it comes to what I do with Cultural DJ. And one of the biggest influences absolutely is Numero Group, because because Numero is kind of like the first one I really got into, the first archival re-release label I got into. It stands as my favorite, and a lot of the reason for that is because of how deep they go into their research and the way that they convey these different stories of bygone artists and record labels and such, and scenes and everything. That's how Numero Group changed my life. And with all that being said, I will leave you all off with that. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Again, new episodes out every Thursday. Be sure to check out the socials, the Cultural DJ Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Links for those will be found in the description. Be sure to also check out the accompanying Spotify playlist. The link for that will also be in the description as well. Thank you all again so much, and I will see you all next time. This is the Cultural DJ signing off.